Okay, so, yeah, have some fun with that. Well, and just, we talked about animals communicating. I mean, we're going back to the origins of communication, right, guys? Did two amoebas communicate? Maybe. Somehow. I don't know. Um, this is a chart on hominid, say that 5 times fast, evolution. Let's see, it's from scienceme.com. Millions of years ago, there's the bar on the left, the axis on the left. And then we see the kind of the tree, so to speak. We know that lots of the fossils of these ancestors have been found in Africa. I'm not sure if that's where Stanley Kubrick shot the beginning sequence that we looked at. It wouldn't surprise me. I think it was meant to look like the part of Africa where lots of these fossils have been found. But be that as it may, you'll see that up at the top there, the guy with the beard, lots of guys with beards, I guess, but the one at the top on the right is the Homo sapiens, which is what we are. And that they only came along maybe a few 100,000 years ago. Probable development of human communication. This is me just kind of making things up. I mean, who knows? No one knows. How can we know what really happened then? We can look at the bones and the fossils. We can get some ideas from that, as you'll see. But I'm just thinking, people probably started using their hands, maybe using their bodies, using sounds, which is what we saw those little creatures doing in the Stanley Kubrick film. They weren't words. They might have meant something. They were more like what birds do, kind of making sounds that might mean one thing or another, an anger sound, come here sound, excitement sound. But I think most people are in agreement, actually, that this invention of sounds that really meant specific things, sounds that stood for things, sounds that were symbols of things, becomes language, that there are words. And just think about what language is. It's just remarkable. There are different languages. Some of you undoubtedly speak more than one language, which, God bless you, that is wonderful. You are lucky. But the fact that we can blow air from our diaphragms through our vocal cords and create these symbols that can be understood by the receivers is just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. Most people, many people, a heck of a lot of people think that language is the greatest invention in our history. And eventually even written words coming into play. And we know that lots of earlier societies only have oral histories, right? They don't write things down. They don't have much in the way of a written language. But everything was passed down orally from scribe to scribe or historian to historian. And the stories and the myths were told around the campfires, the fires, and the villages in the dark, dark nights as this globe of ours traverses its way around the sun again and again and again. Human beings, hominids, well, probably human beings by this point, telling the tales, sharing the stories that made their culture, kind of made them who they were. Native Americans doing this. But the thing about language is, yes, there are the basic words and the meanings of the words, but there can be much more behind the words than just a stark meaning or definition. Words can have different meanings based on the values and the beliefs of the recipient and the source. And all that is, I think we could call it the code. It's what our author calls the code. So these may look like and sound like just words, but there's more going on here in terms of emotional communication and values communication. And so with human communication, source and receiver communicate much better if each knows the code. Whoop, that's a secret decoder ring. Yeah, you turn the letters on the bottom and you get the symbols for the code on top. And you used to be able to get these in boxes of cereal and things like that when I was a kid. And boy, you could have fun writing out messages to your buddies and, leaving them around and creating adventure stories with them. I mentioned that in terms of language beginning, how can we really know? And we only have fossils to look at, very limited sorts of records, but this is something that we did, that people have found in labs, that there's a gene, FOXP2. And you know that the human genome has been analyzed, which is pretty amazing. And so that gene, if it's missing or if there's a mutation in it, there can be deficits in language, as you see, as well as in control of the face and mouth. Gene is a slightly altered version of a gene found in apes, and it seems to have achieved its present form between 200,000 and 100,000 years ago. So based on this analysis, which I assume came from analyzing the genes or the gene sequence in some of these fossils, it may be that speech, language, evolved between 100 and 200,000 years ago. So, the human genome could be the source of when language began. So, we've now talked about source and receiver and different types of messages in terms of body language and sounds, and then words and language, and then a written language. And so we're now going to talk a little bit about this other term here in this diagram, medium. So medium is the singular of media. So when we talk about mass media, it refers to all the books and the newspapers and the websites and the TV shows and the billboards and all the stuff we are exposed to nonstop as we walk and run and drive our way around our lives and our worlds. So I developed this little way of looking at the word medium in my AC 271 class, which is audiences and media. And remember, I like thinking about words and what the definitions are. And the first time I taught this class, I was on my way into my first class, and I kept thinking the word media, okay, medium, medium's a funny word. What other ways is the word medium used? And I want you to think about those ways now. And you're going to do a little exercise and write down what comes to mind when you think about medium. And just the word medium, when is that word? Put away any meanings. Don't think about what the meaning is. When is that word used? And write down a couple of examples. And let's see if you came up with anything like this. Medium rare. Or this, when I'm shopping at H&M with my daughter, which is just, of course, a pure joy. That's sarcasm, folks. Although, anytime I'm with my daughter, to be honest with you, it is a pure joy. It's a medium size, right? There's the artist's medium, okay, which in this case is this canvas and what he's putting on it. This guy, by the way, is a pretty famous artist who lives in Los Angeles. Very involved with his community. Very cool guy. And his works, I mean, look at that. Look at that. They're three-dimensional. It's not just flat paint on the canvas. He's kind of building up little things there. And see if you can find out his name. And send me an email with his name if you find it. He's a very cool guy. What he does in his community and his talent. There's another use of the word medium. There's a little guitar in the back there. These people are holding hands. And someone has brought a banjo. So it looks more like the guitar from behind the curtains. Now, different points in our culture, there have been people who claim to have connections to the afterlife, which is another use of the word medium. And then, by the way, this illustration, I hesitate to take credit for it, but I feel I must. So, there's the classic word, medium, getting back to TV shows and magazines and everything. But what are all those uses of medium? All those uses of the word medium, what do all those uses have in common? The medium is between two things. The medium is between, in the case of magazines and books and TV shows, it's between the source and the receiver. In the case of a steak, it's between rare and well done. In the case of sizes, it's between large and small. In the case of the spiritual medium, it's between this life and the afterlife. In the case of the artist, it's between the artist and the viewer. A medium is something that's in between two other things. It's in the middle. All right, let's talk about message. Well, actually, let's stop here, and then we'll talk about message, because we're almost at 15 minutes. It's not a bad place to stop.